Good morning. You listen to Blaine's World Show, heard here every Wednesday on WPVM in Asheville. I'm your host, Blaine Greenfield, and I'm here in my Zoom studio in downtown Fairview, North Carolina. Each week, we focus on the Asheville theater scene, as well as on positive news and information about people and organizations in both Western North Carolina and throughout the country. And this first half, it's my pleasure to introduce two folks involved with the Magnetic Theater, and they are Elizabeth McCorvey and George Awad. Welcome aboard, guys.
Thank you.
And
Hello.
Elizabeth is already ahead of me. She waved to all her fans and friends in Facebook world. So did George. So now everybody can see you. I should mention that George Awad is a performer, improviser, actor, and graphic designer. He is president of the board of the Magnetic Theater and co-host of the Asheville chapter of Creative Mornings. You have to tell me about that, George, off there. I'm not familiar with that group. When he's not in front of an audience or Zoom screen, he can be found in front of a cappuccino and the latest Scott's cheap flights email. Sounds very productive. Elizabeth is a social worker and a musician living in Asheville, North Carolina, although she was transplanted from Kentucky. She joined the board of Magnetic Theater in January of 2021 so that she could immerse herself more in the Asheville art scene. And so the first question I ask you guys both is this. George, you grew up where?
Buffalo, New York.
Okay. And when you were a little kid growing up in Buffalo, New York, did you always know you wanted to be a comedian, performer? Was that your goal in life?
No. I had many other professional dreams before that, for sure.
What was the first one?
Baseball player.
Okay.
And I quickly realized I'm not good at baseball. And then I think president of the United States. Maybe I aimed a little too high. And I think then I brought it down more to history professor and then comic book artist. And then I just kind of fell into graphic design. So
okay. And talk about not only so much the graphic design that you fell into, but also the idea that you became a comedian and an actor. And I've seen you in a couple of plays at Magnetic. When was the first time you started performing?
Honestly, if you don't count karaoke or weddings that I've, been the reverend for, so to speak, it's probably was 2014, 13.
Okay, that's really cool. And what happened then?
I decided to, on a whim, drive to Chicago from Cincinnati, where I was visiting some friends, and go do a week-long improv intensive at the Improv Olympic.
Okay.
With no experience, and it was interesting.
Okay, very cool. Elizabeth, the same question. Aside from professionally, you're a performer and haven't had the pleasure yet of seeing you yet. But what was the first performing gig you did?
Good question. I started playing the violin when I was a kid, when I was 4 or 5. And so my first gig was probably when I was 5, just like a studio performance.
Okay, now here's the question, and I want George to keep this in mind. But I have a great idea for a fundraiser for the Magnetic Theater. I've told Katie and other people this as well. Okay. But George, what I want to do is I want everybody to recreate their first performance. So, for example, when you were 5 years old, did they do a videotape of that performance?
They didn't, but let me tell you about what they do for 4 and 5-year-olds who play the violin. They don't give them a real violin. They give them a box with a stick on it.
What?
So, it'd be an interesting performance.
So you got to play the box with a string on it, right?
Yep.
And you were a big hit. But wouldn't that be a fun fundraiser, Elizabeth? Everybody has to come in and do their very first 5 minutes, and especially if you don't have a videotape of it. What was the first time you ever performed before an audience, a real audience where you got paid even?
A real audience where I got paid. That would have been maybe 3 or 4 years ago when I started playing music with my current music partner.
Okay. And I don't know, again, I haven't had the pleasure yet of seeing you perform, but what's the name of the group or your partner's name?
Yeah. So my partner's name is Liz. And so we are Liz and Elizabeth.
Okay. And have you now, I didn't see the show. Were you at Magnetic yet? The outdoor thing?
Yeah. When was it? Maybe in April I was there. Okay. Yeah. And then I was there again with another band last month.
Okay, great. Well, anyway, I look forward to seeing you eventually perform too. Do you act as well?
Nope. I get very scared on stage.
But it's funny, you don't get scared performing though, when you perform.
No, it's different. I don't know how. It's just different.
Okay.
Don't listen to her.
George, same thing too, even on your end. Do you feel
hustling
different?
both of us.
But do you feel different when you're performing versus doing improv? Do you feel different?
Yes. There's, it's funny, like at the beginning of a run, like a play, it's you're definitely nervous because you're trying to still remember all the things, but then you get the muscle memory, and then by mid-run you feel good, you're just flowing. And improv is a little bit of nerves every time, but again, 5 minutes in, you just feel good. Even if the audience doesn't feel good, you feel good.
You'll make them feel good. Let's talk a little bit then about your work at Magnetic, because I know, George, you've been involved with Magnetic for a while, and I've seen you as a performer too. What got you involved in terms of, we'll say, the behind the scenes aspect of Magnetic, being a board member and then now board president? How'd you get involved in that?
Actually, I went to some Magnetic shows, and then Katie Jones, who's the artistic director, is a really good friend of mine, and she kind of recruited me to be on the board. And honestly, I didn't really know what that meant, and I'm still a little foggy. But really, we have such a great board. It's very active. Everybody on there is a performer of some kind, and or a creative, and it's really great. And we all just care about preserving, and not just preserving, but really kind of like pushing the limits of this really cool space and this really cool platform that we get to present art on, and it's pretty magical.
The same thing too, Elizabeth, because you were still relatively new to the Asheville area. How did you get conned into, I won't say asked into, being a member of the board for Magnetic Theater?
So I'm not new to the Asheville area, just
okay.
new to the board. I've been in Asheville maybe 5 or 6 years,
okay.
But yeah, I was approached by another board member who knew that I really love theater, that I love music, and that and she was hopeful that I would bring in some different kind of perspective. And it sounded really exciting to me because I've grown up watching theater my whole life, and I love small regional productions and showcasing regional talent. That's really exciting to me, not just doing the big shows that people have seen lots of times, but doing small debuts of things. That's fun.
And one of the cool things about Magnetic, and we'll have you guys talk about this as well, is that it seems you're always doing something new, or different. It's just, which I really like, George. Again, you don't see the Broadway blockbusters ever. You just see lots of different things.
Yeah.
And can we both talk about the fact that one of the beauties of I guess, being at Magnetic or performing is you also can take advantage of this beautiful large dressing room. Is that correct? It's one of the things that makes it so unusual. It's the big dressing room for the performance. Is that correct?
Oh, it's a big perk. Huge. Huge. Yeah, we're thinking about putting on a show in the dressing room.
That would be something. In reality, folks, it's like about the smallest dressing room I think you'll ever see, but somehow it works. And segues, I guess, George, into something else that works. And I guess you got involved in it. I don't know if you started it, but you're doing this series now on Tuesday nights. And talk a little bit about that.
Yes, it's called, it's a collaboration with Smoky Park Supper Club, our River Arts District neighbors. And it's an outdoor variety show, which we actually started doing in last August in the thickets of the pandemic, of the lockdown. And people brought their foldy chairs because, it's Asheville. Everybody's got a foldy chair in the trunk. I mean, I don't, but everybody but me has a foldy chair in the trunk. And they brought their masks and they distanced, and we just had performers who were just kind of, I don't know, just wasting away at home, not performing and itching to perform, and just come out and play. And we've got, musicians, improvisers, actors, storytelling. We have fire spinning, and we have a juggler coming up on the 24th, actually, jugglers, and a clown. Yep. And just some really great people around town doing really great things that just need to be shared. And, we do it every Tuesday from 7 to 9 on Smoky Park's outdoor stage. And they've been amazing. And they have maintain this little Airstream bar with beer, wine, and tamales. And then we have it in the boathouse if there's inclement weather, which seems to happen every hour on the hour here. And it's been really great. And we pay our performers, which we're very proud about.
which is really cool because, again, one of the things I give Magnetic Theater a lot of credit for is that they do pay performers. And I just think that's a really nice thing that, people play violin or people who play other instruments actually get paid to perform, which is kind of nice. It's not, it's not filling. Elizabeth, you may have heard this as a performer, and George, I'm sure you've heard it as well as a performer. What about the idea that you get all this exposure? You don't have to get paid because we'll give you exposure just for being there. What's your reaction, Elizabeth, when people tell you that? We'd love to have you sing or perform, and you'll get lots of exposure. How do you feel about that?
I think when you said that, what I usually respond with is, thanks.
Thanks, no thanks.
Exposure doesn't pay the rent.
People don't realize that. What they also don't realize, especially for musicians too, and talk a little bit about this too, is even the show is only 15 minutes, half an hour, it takes a lot more to put on a show than just being there that night. And talk about that fact, especially how much work and effort it takes on to become a performer. When you do it, you have to practice, you have to rehearse it, you have to learn it. So you make actually about 17 cents an hour. It winds up when you get paid.
I think I'd feel like a rich woman if I made 17 cents an hour doing that.
No, but it's a shame people don't realize that. That even probably your friends sometimes don't realize that. Hey, just perform. It just comes naturally. But there's a lot of work behind it.
Mm-hmm. We talked about this recently in a board meeting. Just what it took. It's not just somebody shows up for their 15-minute slot at 7:15. It's that they have to be there first they have to have done all of the rehearsing and all of the coordinating, and then they have to be there for the sound check, and then they have to be there for the actual performance. And so a lot goes into it. Especially when we're talking about a juggler or a fire breather or a clown, and all the materials that go into that, and all the instruments, all the rehearsal, all the coordination. It's a lot.
And then, then the driving there and the mileage and not only time, but the neat thing, and I'd be curious, George, from a comedian standpoint, an improv standpoint, is the fact that a guy who was at Malcolm Gladwell, I think it was, in Blink, that said that, to become an expert in something takes 10,000 hours of time or performance to get to the level where you want to be. I don't know, Elizabeth, if you ever counted the hours of rehearsal and perform. Do you still rehearse? Do you still practice, Elizabeth?
Constantly.
How often do you practice every day?
Every day. Well, every day I try to pick up my violin at least once a day, but rehearsing per week, maybe 3 days a week if we've got a gig going, and then rehearsing myself in between.
Mm-hmm. Because I recently had, you guys may know him, George, and it'd be a great outdoor performer for you. I assume you know the name Franklin Keel?
Oh yeah, he played last month.
I'm so sorry I missed it.
Yeah, it was at our classical night he played.
Yeah, we had a classical night. Yeah.
Oh, really? Just a classical?
Just classical.
What an amazing performer. But he's told me, other classical people have told me, they spend, Elizabeth, several hours a day just practicing, to get to a level. What about in terms of George?
Can I interrupt? Well, just first, can I add to that? All of these performative disciplines are crafts, and they do take time. They do take at least 10,000 hours. And it is not, I think the problem, let me get soapboxy for a second, but I think the problem in this country is we don't equate art as work. We just equate art as like, oh, look at that neat thing they just did.
Right.
But it takes a lot to get to that neat thing and to be great at it. And it takes work. It's all work.
But, so on target with respect to, I think about regular artists, painters, and people who do other kind of art too. That's why I don't know about you, but I never argue with somebody who quotes a price, because whatever the price is, they're worth every bit of it, as opposed to saying, hey, it's a painting, it's only worth so much money.
Right.
I don't see what went into it. Just an incredible amount. In your work, in terms of talking about being a comedian, now you've done stand-up as well?
I haven't actually.
Oh, you haven't done actual stand-up?
No.
Yeah,
he's an MC for a Tuesday night sometimes. I would say that's a bit of a stand-up routine.
I'm literally standing up.
But even when you do improv, that took a lot of practice. Did you have to study that to get good at it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, I've studied here in Asheville with the great Tom Chalmers, and at AIC, and also in Chicago and other places, Dallas once. The great thing about improv and improvisers in general is that nobody's too good, too seasoned, or too veteran to learn more. Because just like acting or playing an instrument or something, it's just like you almost have to fight your body. You have to get your body back to, this is what we do, as opposed to let's fall into old habits or let's get lazy. And all these things take, again, work. So yeah.
Do you still practice improv?
Yeah. There's occasional shows around town in outdoor locations usually for now.
What happens? Have you ever had a situation? I always wonder with improv, you can't come up with something. Have you ever had that?
Oh yeah. Yeah, and well, the nice thing about improv is that your teammates are there to help. I've definitely walked on stage many times where I'm like, I'm just gonna make a gesture or do something physical, and something will either come to me, or one of my teammates from the side will be like, why are you cooking that pasta so fast? You know what I mean? And it's just that's the beauty of it. And then you just build off each other, and it's great. It's magic when it works. It's magic.
Elizabeth, have you ever seen George do improv?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, have you?
He's quite good.
Okay, and he's so
And
modest
she
about
is
it.
an amazing musician. Seriously.
Okay, and let's talk a little bit then when Elizabeth's been a musician, and also kind of the upcoming shows. What happens? What happens actually if somebody does come out on a Tuesday night? They have to be there, what, a little before 7? You want them to come?
To perform, or
no, to just watch the show. Show starts at 7. They should be there what time?
You could be there at 7. Yeah.
Okay.
Sometimes we've got kind of pre-performance performers that kind of do a little bit of performing before we start. Like we've had the fire breathers, fire dancers folks do their fire routine a couple minutes before, because we never start right at 7.
No.
Asheville people tend to wander in.
They also don't tend to get tickets in advance, like on the Tuesday shows, I guess, can they sign up for them in advance?
Yeah, you can buy them on our website for sure.
Okay, and the website, George, is what?
I'm glad you asked, Blaine. It's themagnetictheater.org.
Okay, and you spelled theater the correct way, is that correct?
Yes, and you spell it like you say it, theater. R-E.
R-E.org. And so they can get tickets in advance, and I'll encourage people to do so, because what I'm finding, Elizabeth and George, is all of a sudden now, with COVID restrictions coming into play, tickets are going quicker actually than they used to, because there aren't as many seats. So I think I told you up the air that I wanted to see a recent show at Magnetic. I got sold out. So now it says to myself, I said to myself, I should get them in advance, because we want a guaranteed seat. Not so much the outdoor stuff. I guess you can fit in most people outdoors. Is that true?
Oh yeah. I mean,
yeah. But the indoor stuff at Magnetic Theater, I'm telling folks if you want to see it, make sure you get tickets in advance. Mm-hmm. So how many people typically come to a performance?
Inside, it's we're generally at 2/3 capacity.
No, I mean, I'm sorry, the outdoor performances.
I guess. Oh, the outdoor performance. Yeah. Honestly, we kind of leave it open as long as it's comfortable for everybody. But 50 to 75.
Okay, and they'll get to see now every week. Do they get to see you as the MC, or just some of the time?
No, my co-producers jump in sometimes, and I think once we had a comedian do it, the whole thing.
Okay.
So yeah, but mostly it's me. But when I'm in town.
And who are your co-producers?
Elizabeth McCorvey and Jason Phillips. I'm sure you're familiar with him.
Okay, sure. Now, Elizabeth, have you been an MC yet for a show?
I have a couple times.
Oh, did you enjoy that? I think we're freezing. We're freezing you.
I do. Yeah. Sorry. Am I back?
A little bit. Okay. Somewhat. We don't quite have you, but are you there, Elizabeth?
Am I back now?
I think so for the time being.
I think so.
Okay. So you've been
well, that's what it's like watching me MC. Sometimes it works really well, and then sometimes it's choppy.
Well, but do you have fun as an MC?
I do. I like it a lot. It's fun to be up there. It's fun now that I'm a little bit more comfortable with it. It's a lot of fun to to be engaged with the audience and the people that come to see us. And it's really fun to co-MC. I like to co-MC with George. It's like I'm in a mini improv group with him because he's really funny, and it takes some of the pressure off, but I like it a lot.
Now talk about some of the past performers you've had, and we'll talk about future performers. What was aside from the fire eaters, I guess, I've never seen them. Have you had any other unusual acts?
Well, there's always Rigel Pollock, who is the Clown Prince of Asheville. He always makes for a unique good time. And I mean that in the best way, of course. He's fun and funny, and he goes, I can't even describe it. It's you got to come out and see him. Am I right, Elizabeth? You got to come out and see him. Yep.
Huge fan of Rigel.
Yeah. We've had some really great stand-ups like Kelsey Rosen, Morgan Boss, P.D. McDowell, just to name a paltry few. We've had the Black Diamond Group Performance Ensemble, kind of an acting troupe. How would you describe them, Elizabeth? I guess kind of like an acting, dramatic reading troupe.
Yeah, dramatic reading. I know that there's a primary poet, and then she's pulled some folks in to do some more dramatic readings, and just like you said, acting and dramatic readings of her poetry. Yeah,
and we've had also like fantastic musicians like Elizabeth, but also Laura Boswell, Hannah Kaminer, Hypnotic, Analog Moon. Who am I leaving out? I'm sure I'm leaving lots of people out. I mean, there's honestly so many performers in town, and even some dramatic, like kind of like on Classical Night, we had Jason Phillips and Lauren Otis do Taming of the Shrew, an interpretation of it, and that was really fun. And yeah, I mean, it's all over the place.
Nice thing. It sounds like if you go, you're always going to always see something different. Would that be a kind of way to describe it?
Every single Tuesday is completely different.
Well, then I'll ask Elizabeth. I think I have in front of you, for example, the upcoming show. I think you mentioned it'd be on the 20. What day? The 24th, is it?
The 24th.
24th. Who's going to be at that show, Elizabeth?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've got, I'm reading it because it's different every week. I can't memorize everybody. We've got 40 Fingers and a Missing Tooth, which
fantastic.
is a juggling act. Yeah, we've got Eric Lappin, who is music. We've got Marlene Thompson, who is a comedian, and we've got Brie Capone, who has performed with us before, maybe a month ago, I think, and she's an amazing musician.
So just put it down. I'll be out of town, but I think come back for that. 40 Fingers and a Missing Tooth for quite a while. So I'm anxious to see, that group. They're a great juggling group. Because that's really great, George. You got them because they haven't been performing too much lately. So I'm really glad you got them coming on board. I don't know if you or Elizabeth were there, but they actually did a show one time at the Magnetic Theater, and it was a 2-week run or something, and it was really tough, Elizabeth, because can you imagine the theater doing a juggling act, throwing stuff up high in the air? It's not a really big theater, but they carried it off. It was a great performer. So sounds like a fun show. When you have the shows, how long is each performer on?
Anywhere between 15, 25 minutes, depending. Like the poetry might be a little bit shorter. Some music acts might be a little bit longer.
Right.
And they can perform, I guess, until George gives them the hook. Do you have an actual hook that he takes?
Yeah, we purchased a hook. It's not long enough, so I still have to come up on stage. But yeah, we get them.
No, and you laugh. Have you ever had to cut off a performer?
No, not really. I mean, there's certain times where everybody just leaves and they're still playing. It's like on the deck of the Titanic.
That gives you the impression that it's about time for them to get off. One of the nice things I love about the show, and I just put it down to see if I can get there on the 24th, is that I love the timing of it also, in that I'm an early night kind of guy. So they're going to get out of there by what time?
If you stay till the end, 9.
Okay, which is kind of nice. And so there's an intermission as well?
Usually 15 minutes or so.
Okay. And you can also drink and have a good time at the same time?
that's what we're all about.
Talk a little bit about for the outdoor shows and also the indoor shows. What's the practice now on masks? And I know it's changing a little bit. What's the latest?
For the outdoor shows, we haven't really stressed it because everyone kind of does a really good job of spacing themselves out or sitting in their own pods. And it's outdoors. I think the data supports that it's generally fine. Will that change? Maybe. Things keep changing every week, so I don't really know. But again, if you've been to Smoky Park Space, it's expansive, so there's tons of room.
How about indoors?
Indoors, we're spacing at least one seat between people. Then, of course, that might change. We're at about 2/3 capacity at the moment,
Okay.
which probably runs to about 55 to 60 seats, depending.
And what if somebody is listening to the show or watching it and they want to become a performer? How do you find or locate the performers? What's that process?
Well, they can reach out to, we have auditions at least a couple times a year for some of our productions. But if they wanted to, I'm actually looking for the email address, to be honest. But basically they can just reach us through the social media channels of choice, Facebook or Instagram, or just go to themagnetictheater.org and click on the contact button.
Okay. And so if somebody does perform, they have to go through an audition, or I guess unless you know them, right? Is that how it works?
Every production is different. Sometimes they cast for a bunch of productions at once, or sometimes a certain director or producer has somebody in mind.
Yeah. I was thinking more in terms of the Tuesday night shows.
The Tuesday night shows.
Yeah.
Well, they can reach out to us directly, again, through either of those channels. And the message usually gets forwarded. And honestly, it's not about, we don't want this to be an open mic. It's all about having performers who have put in at least 5,000 hours, maybe, and who just are local and want to have a showcase for their talents.
And what's really exciting to me, at least, is, like you just said, the showcase is that this is something that they ordinarily wouldn't have the opportunity to do. A lot of people, that if you're in a show, you have an opportunity to act, perhaps, if you're open mic even, but to be a classical musician and talk about it, really cool. You had one whole night just devoted to classical music. Have you done that in the past? Have special nights?
We did a soul night where we had the soul band Hypnotic come out, and Black Diamond Performance Group Ensemble did some readings, and some Gina Cornejo, who's been great, another really good dramatic. I'm not really sure what to call her. She's kind of storytelling, kind of dramatic reading, spoken word, a little bit of everything. And then we had classical night again with a whole bunch of classical musicians. I mean, a lot. I've never seen that many in one.
No, I'm saying
without being a symphony.
That really is a cool idea. Talk a little bit moving forward, Elizabeth, aside from being involved with Magnetic Theater and these Tuesday night things, talk a little bit about your two-person group. What are some of your upcoming activities and plans?
Yeah, this week I get to play with both bands. I get to perform with them. The Arboretum has this Arbor Evenings event where everybody's outside, can enjoy the gardens. And so on Thursday night, I'm playing there with my music partner, Liz. We're doing a set. Liz and Elizabeth will be there. And then on Friday night, the other band I play with Mar, that's the band, Mar and the Marmaladies, will be there on Friday night playing a set.
Okay. If people want to find out more information about those performances, what's the best bet, Elizabeth?
Yeah, for Mar, my band with Mar, you can find us on social media. On Instagram, it's at Mar Music Official, MARMUSIC Official. And then for Liz and Elizabeth, we are at Liz and Elizabeth. We are LizandElizabeth.com, Liz and Elizabeth Music on Facebook. Google Liz and Elizabeth in music, you will find us.
Okay, so look them up, you'll find them. George, same thing too. We talked a little bit about, if you can repeat the website for Magnetic Theater, we'll talk about beyond Magnetic Theater, but if people want to get tickets for this Tuesday night, any Tuesday night show, and they're running till how long?
Through October.
And so if people want to find out information about those shows, best bet again is to go to the website, which is
themagnetictheater.org.
Okay, and you have to pronounce it the way you just did. Is that correct?
In fact, while you type it in the URL, you have to pronounce it that way. Out loud. Yeah.
Okay, and aside from going to the website, I know Magnetic Theater is on Facebook. And if they want to find out more information about you, George, or any of the stuff you're doing, is there any best bet?
No, actually, but I like to use my social feeds to promote things.
Okay.
So yeah.
Anyway, I want to thank you both for being my guests this first half hour on the BLAINESWORLD show. Hope to see you. I just put down the 24th if I can get there that night, or hope to see you on a Tuesday night performance. If
Great.
not, I'll see you at the, wait, how do you pronounce it? The Magnetic
Theater.
Theater. Okay,
Yeah,
thanks, guys.
very good.
Good
Thanks,
meeting you,
Blaine.
Elizabeth.
Blaine.
Okay,
Appreciate
speak to you
it.
soon. Okay, I want to have them disappear as I bring in my next guest. So if I can do this through the high technological of making you disappear. Let's see if I can remove you. I'll stop the video. That'd be one way. And there's, okay, we'll say goodbye to George, and we'll get my next guest in. And let's see if I can more. Yes, start video. And I think Delores is going to join us in just a second. And as my second guest joins us, hopefully she'll come in a little bit. I should mention WPVM's mission is, there she is to foster community through programming that cultivates dialogue to inform and entertain. The station provides the medium for artists, businesses, community leaders, and nonprofits to share their voice on live radio. Listeners are invited to help support WPVM's efforts by making a tax-deductible contribution. You can do so by going to the website, wpvmfm.org, and looking at the donate option on the upper right-hand side. It's next my pleasure to introduce a longtime friend, and she is Delores Chalmers. And Delores, you can wave to all your friends in Facebook world. So can you wave to everybody?
Yes, I can. Hello, everyone.
And Delores, as you'll see in just a second here, is this amazing teacher, author, fitness coach, motivational speaker, you name it, Delores does it. And as a seasoned teacher and fitness coach, Delores enjoys sharing inspiring words with others. It feeds her soul to make a difference in the life of those who are facing challenges. As a teacher and fitness coach, she spent 15 years plus learning ways to cope with everyday life-changing challenges. Through her innovative and unique research, she learned the perfect strategy to thrive during the most difficult times in life, and she can help you do the same. And Delores, if I can just share, first of all, the way we first met, it's one of my favorite stories. And I think you remember it because I've told you too many times. But I met you, I don't know, maybe 20 years ago or 15 years ago, whatever, in Hillsborough, New Jersey, where I lived nearby. And Delores was worked at the local ShopRite, I think. Is it ShopRite?
Yes, it is. It's ShopRite.
Yeah, in North Carolina, we get confused, call it Ingalls, but in New Jersey, it's ShopRite everywhere. Delores was working at ShopRite. And Delores, I want to just talk about the process that I remember even to this day, you just kind of blew me away. It's just like, I'd never seen anybody quite like you as a employee at ShopRite. And what's your feeling about even just being an employee at ShopRite? How do you actually make a difference in people's lives? Do you know that?
You know what? It's therapeutic for me. And I love working with people. That's basically my background. All of my jobs have included dealing with the public and large amounts of people. When I work at ShopRite, I've gotten several nice compliments. People will come in with a bad day, and just by me smiling at them made a big difference. So I really enjoy serving the public and meeting people and learning. It's also a learning experience. I meet people from all different walks of lives and different backgrounds and careers. And I get the opportunity to talk to them a little bit about what they do and share a little bit about what I do. And it's just a wonderful experience.
And I remember I was so impressed with you that I remember I nominated you for a BLAINESWORLD Best Award, and I put you in my blog. And it's
Yes,
just,
you did.
I don't think I'd ever seen a cashier, make a difference in my life, but I want to thank you for that. It's just, and I still remember it 15, 20 years later, and we still stayed in touch, 15, 20 years later. And then I was so impressed after finding a little bit more about you. I think you were then just switching careers. From the process of switching careers, you'd been in tell me a little bit about the background. You'd been in the medical profession, and you switched to go into education.
Yes.
What brought about that?
Well, I actually worked in cardiology for 17 years as an EKG technician. I worked very closely with cardiologists. My dad had heart trouble, and they would advise me of all the modern technology and new medications that came out that would help him, with his cardiac problems. I went back to school and got my degree in business management because I wanted to work into pharmaceutical sales. So that's what moved me back to the East Coast, along with helping my sister because she was facing some health challenges. So while I was here helping her, I said, hey, do you mind if I move back here to pursue a career in pharmaceutical sales? And she said, sure. So while I was here, I was walking around the area in Hillsborough, and I got bored with putting applications online and making phone calls and sitting in front of a computer. So I said, I need to do something else besides that. And that's when I went into ShopRite, and I talked to the manager and I said, I'm looking for work. I said, I have a management degree. He said, I can't make you a manager. He said, but I could put you to work right away. When would you like to start? I said, as soon as possible. So I'm so glad that I did that. And here I am, 17, 18 years and still working at ShopRite and serving the public, even through my commute. Because now I'm living in Pennsylvania. I'm not sure you were aware of that, but
You told me. And where in Pennsylvania?
I'm in Allentown. We actually bought property out in Pennsylvania because the taxes in Hillsborough is very high.
So you actually in Allentown, but you're still coming back to the Hillsborough shop, right?
I am, yes.
Oh my, how far? That's an hour drive?
It's an hour drive.
Wow, that's amazing. But then what surprised me is one day we were talking, and I don't know if you know it, but I always made a point to go to wherever you were, whatever aisle you were in, I always made a point to have you check us out. And then you all of a sudden started telling me that, well, you're still at ShopRite, but you then decided to go to school for, was it your master's, or what degree was that?
Well, what happened was a girlfriend of mine's is in New Jersey. She's a retired teacher now. She said, while you're trying to get into pharmaceuticals, she said, why don't you try subbing? She said, at least you'll make some pretty decent money until you can make the transition. So that's what I did. And what happened was the school district fell in love with me. I had a good rapport with the kids, with the teachers, with the principals. So I was offered a grant. I explained to them that I didn't have a teaching degree. My degree is in business management. And I got a grant paid for to go back for early childhood intervention, which would give me some special ed courses under my belt, which would qualify me to teach, because at the time, all you needed was some kind of certificate or degree in early childhood intervention, because it's still a part of teaching. So that's what I did. And I was going to school, working at ShopRite, and still trying to get into pharmaceutical sales. So I was pretty busy during that time. I graduated. After I finished, the laws had changed in Pennsylvania. They wanted a dual certification. You needed a certification in either English, math, science, along with the special ed. So I decided to just continue to teach. Since the district, they didn't want me to leave, I was guaranteed work all the time, and I'm still guaranteed work because I've been with them so long, and my services are always needed. So
Now you're teaching still in New Jersey?
no, I'm teaching in Allentown.
Okay, you're teaching in I was thinking Allentown, New Jersey, Allentown, Pennsylvania.
Allentown, Pennsylvania.
So,
yes.
And what are you teaching there?
Well, this year actually, 5th grade.
Right, so
Because they needed me in 5th grade. Normally I was working with high school students and middle school, but they needed me elementary because of the shortage.
So you're full-time, I can't believe you. You're a full-time elementary school, 5th grade in Allentown,
Yes.
Pennsylvania. You work in New Jersey. And the cool thing about you, Dolores, is it sounds like you don't get much sleep, because when you're not doing all that stuff, talk a little bit about, I guess, what's become, if not a hobby, almost a way of life to you. You're also into fitness. Is that correct?
That is correct.
What got you into that?
Well, interesting or not, I've always been into fitness. I've always worked out because I suffer with a little bit of anxiety and depression. And one of the ways to keep myself mentally stable and physically is by working out. So while working at ShopRite, there was a pamphlet from the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society that said, we'll teach you how to run a marathon. So I'm thinking to myself, wow, that's a challenge for me. I mean, I could walk, I could do a lot of different things. I work out with weights, but I never ran a marathon, and I never really liked running. So I called and inquired about it, and I told them how old I was at the time. And I said, can you guys train me? I said, I worked in the medical field. I had a back injury while working in cardiology. I said, but my back is pretty stable now. Can you guys work with me? And they said, yes. And they signed me up. The coaches was phenomenal. I couldn't believe the first year I did it.
Well, so you
So
talked about the first year you actually ran in a marathon?
Yes,
Half marathon or full marathon?
it was a full marathon.
Well, how long did it take you to train for that?
Well, that's another thing. It took me, I usually train in the spring and the summer and do the fall events. So technically you only have about 5 months.
So I mean,
5 months.
that's pretty impressive. From never having run before, you all of a sudden now running after 5 months in your first marathon, and you made it through.
Yes, I did.
You survived. And so I won't say that's been the start of a career, but since then you've run how many marathons?
Oh, since then I've ran, I'm going to say about 16 or 17.
And it's a shame we can't show it on the air, but it's in one of the reasons you had to move to Allentown, PA, so you have a bigger house just to have all your trophies and medals, on display.
Yes.
We don't see that room, but that's something. So you still keep running, and you run typically what, one marathon a year?
Yes, I was running one marathon a year. I was signing up for one event, but I've had several people in my family that passed. So what I decided to do to honor my sister was I decided to hike the Grand Canyon. And I did that one year along with running a marathon. And then the year after that, my mom passed. So I decided to run another one to honor her. And I did 2 that year. So,
Well, I know you have one upcoming, and it's gotten so to the point where you now are getting tired, I guess, of New Jersey and Pennsylvania. So you told me off there, you're going to Chicago now to do a marathon?
I am. Every year I run somewhere different. That's the nice thing about it as well. So I get to travel along with my running.
Well, one of the things I have to say, I'm disappointed with you, Delores, is you haven't come to Asheville yet to run, so I'll put that on your agenda. I'll have to look for.
Well, believe it or not, it was on my agenda and it was canceled because of the pandemic.
Oh, was it? You were going to run in Asheville?
Yes.
Because one of the things I always look forward to is you always tell on social media, you tell people where you're running and who you're running for. I won't say I make contribution every year, but I try to. It's just kind of cool that, you run these events, but you run them usually in honor of somebody that somebody else benefits, So is it always leukemia, or do you sometimes change the group you're running for?
Well, you know what? Working in the medical field, I've ran for, well, not ran, but I did walks for MS. I've always supported different types of charities. But when I started with the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, and that's because they trained me to run marathons and I get to travel. When I first started out, one of the reasons I continue to do it also is one of the ladies at ShopRite that sponsored me, her sister was battling cancer at the time. And she said to me, I'd be happy to sponsor you. And she said, my sister is going to be so proud to know that you're running in honor of her with her name on your shirt. So it really touched my heart to know that I'm making a difference in other people's lives by doing this as well. During the process, like I said, when I first started out, I was doing it, to make a difference in other people's lives. And then years down the line, that's when I started losing people in my family to different cancers and things of that nature. So that's when I started running in honor of them and in memory of them as well.
How much do you run each day?
It depends on the training, my schedule. I'm going to run tomorrow 6 miles. I try to take a break in between there. Like today, I worked out at the gym, lifted little weights. I got some toning that I have to do to prepare for this, to keep my body strong, because I am, aging. So I run 3 times a week. Saturday, I did 14 miles.
Do you run with
Because
anybody?
I have to build up each
Sure.
week since I'm doing a full marathon.
Do you run with anybody?
No, I remember. Well, when I first started, I did, and that was wonderful with the coaches that were training me, and I would run with a team, with the group of people that I was running with. But I've been doing it for so many years, I just go out and do it on my own now.
What's the longest you've ever run at one time?
20 miles.
Oh, just a marathon, and then a full marathon. But you never run,
Yes.
like, what are they? The ultra marathons, or they run like 50, 100, 200 miles or something?
No, you know what? I have to maintain also so that I continue to work. So
I was
I
gonna
have
say
to
that.
balance. I have to balance it out because I like to do a lot of different things.
Yeah, in your spare time. And talk about, again, I won't say it's the most amazing thing about you, but it's certainly up there. One of the other things you now started doing, that not only do you run in marathons, but just this past year, I'm so proud of you. You actually put together your first marathon. Is that correct?
I did. I actually put together a 5K race.
And talk about that. What was that?
Well, that was in memory of my daughter that I lost the day before the pandemic. My daughter used to be out. She used to help me fundraise. And she used to always tell everybody, she was just really proud of what I was doing. She used to tell everybody, my mom's FloJo. And I said, please don't tell people that. So in memory of her, I felt like this is something that I can do to honor her and to get other people involved as well. And it was really emotional for me putting this together. But for the support that I got and the people that participated, and I had a lot of people tell me, I'm so glad that you did this. My mother's battling colon cancer as we speak, and that's why I'm out here. And if you decide to do this again next year, I'll definitely be here to support you. There was people that were just on the trail doing their normal everyday walk. And when they found out what I was doing and why I was doing it, they signed up right there. I mean, it was so touching. And what really, really touched me is one of the teachers that I work with, she came out with a shirt with a picture of my daughter on it.
Oh, really? Oh,
that really touched my heart.
Now, where was the first race? Where was this?
This was in Copley, Pennsylvania, on the Iron Rail Trail. Beautiful trail.
Now, will there be a second race next year?
Yes, there will be a second race.
And how is that for you? I mean, pretty cool that you've never done this before. All of a sudden, you decide to put on a race, and yet how many people show up for this first one?
65 people.
Which is pretty impressive.
65 people registered, yes.
For a first one. And I think people don't realize this, Delores, but there's a lot of work involved in putting on a race. Were you surprised?
Oh, was I surprised? Was I surprised? Yeah. Well, when I decided to do it, the gentleman that owns a sporting goods store here, I go buy my running gear from him every year, and I had expressed to him about what happened with my daughter. So he thought it would be a good idea because I did that on her birthday as well. I got a group of people together, and we actually went out and did a walk in memory of her on her birthday. And he said to me, "Why don't you, do an official race?" So I said, and he connected me with the right people to put it together. Well, the gentleman from Pretzel City Sports, he gave me all the tools, everything that I needed to do. And it was funny because I'm teaching all year, right? So when school is over, I made a list for myself, and I emailed him the list, and I said, I want to make sure that I have everything in order that I need to do so I could get this together, before the race, because I have another 2 weeks. So he sent me an email back and said, no, you need to do this, this, and this. And I said, oh, I thought that's what you were doing. He goes, no, that's what you're supposed to do. So that was pretty funny. That was a really rude awakening for me, because he sent me a lot of information and I kind of skimmed through it, but I didn't really have time to read everything. But you know what? It worked out beautifully. I was off school. I had 2 weeks in between there, and I got everything done.
And talk about, too, not only you getting involved, but how many other people did you have help you running it?
What do you mean helping me?
That day and setting up, the whole thing and taking registrations, doing all the other stuff, was just you, or do you have a team to help?
No, I actually had my sister, one of my friends from the library, one of the ladies that I ran with in Alaska. Do you know that she came down? She saw it on Facebook, and she said to me, are you still doing that in memory of your daughter? And I said, yes, because she remembered when we did the race together in Alaska that I had told her my daughter was battling cancer. And so when she saw it on Facebook, she said, are you still going to do it? And I said, yes. She said, I'm going to come down and help you. And I said, that's fine if you want to. She actually got off work that Friday, got a hotel, came down, slept, and then came down to help me. But I had already taken care of everything. But I thought that was so touching for her to do that. And the gentleman that I told you that owned, his name is Chris, by the way, that owned the shoe store where I get all my running gear from, he came out along with his family, because this is something that he does all the time. So he knew what he was doing, and he understood that I didn't. So he actually took over and told us what to do as far as signing more people up, because you have to be quick when you got people that's walking up.
Right.
When you got people walking up and want to race at the last minute, you have to make sure that you give them. And then I was giving out raffle tickets and gifts, and it was just amazing. So I had more than enough help.
That reminds me probably where your training at ShopRite come in handy, because you're capable of doing, I guess, about 73 things at once. And in your case, probably about 74, which is the perfect segue into another thing I want to talk to you about. And I saw it on Facebook, but all of a sudden I see now that you're involved in writing a book, or we're involved in writing a book. Yes. And again, that's kind of another thing that I say you do that in your spare time. What gave you the idea? How did you get involved in this book writing project?
Oh, well, this is interesting. After my daughter passed, I was asked to do a collaboration with a group of teachers. They were writing a book. And at first I was like, no, that sounds like a lot of work. But because of the pandemic and no one was going into the school, I said, why not? So this group and we met every Thursday, and I actually looked forward to meeting with these people. I did not know I only knew one other person, the person that invited me to join. And it was just therapeutic for me to be with a group of people, positive, uplifting, trying to do something, trying to make a difference in the world during this pandemic. So what happened was I started working with the group. Little by little, people were having family members pass, friends pass. A lot of people were dropping in and out of the group. So the person that organized the group, she was getting frustrated and she said, you know what, I'm just going to drop this project. This was like about maybe 3 months in. And I said, drop it. You can't drop this project. This has been therapeutic for me. I look forward to this every week. And I had really gotten into it. I wrote my section in the book and I'm like, and I got done with that. I had it proofread and I'm ready. So what happened was I actually took over because she was getting frustrated because people were dropping out. They weren't meeting on time. And I said, life happens. Life happened to me. So you have to be understanding and patient with people. And so I took over and I started calling. And then at the last minute, we had to get 3 new people to add to the group project. So we got the 3 new people in. I collaborated with them. And then what we decided to do was to sell the book to school districts. So I said, this young lady, which she's in the book as well, her name is Mrs. Jimerson. She wanted to publish, she's published a couple of books on her own. So I said to her, I said, if we're trying to sell this to a school district, I said, you want this done professional.
Sure.
This has to be A-OK. I said, because you're going to have the superintendent look at this. You're going to have other people at the school district that has to make a decision whether or not they even want to use this book in the school system. So what I did was I found a editing company, Elite Writers. Awesome. And I called the lady up and I talked to her and I explained to her what I was doing. And she said, send your manuscript over and we'll take care of it. And I told her my vision of the cover, what I wanted the cover to look like. And she said, send me an example. And I did that and I put it together and I published the book.
Show the book, if you would, please, and we'll talk about it. Book, let me just read it. New Ways of Learning in 2020. Corona Struck. Who is that?
Yes, Corona Struck.
And
I actually came up with the title. And after I came up with the title, they didn't like the title, but I did because everyone was Corona struck.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, great. So
they were struck by the coronavirus.
Good point. So if people want to get this book, and we'll talk about what's in it in the remaining time, how do they get a copy of the book?
The book is on Amazon. Just go to Amazon and you will find it. Put in New Ways of Learning in 2020 and it will pop up. You will see my name, Delores Chalmers. And it's actually on sale.
And you wrote the one chapter, which was about what?
My chapter is about Delores Talks Determination.
Okay, and you're certainly determined.
Yes, I am.
If you want to get something done, yeah.
My section was about for struggling teenagers. Okay. I remember how it was myself as a teenager and working with teenagers. They're confused. They're in between being a kid and an adult. They have a lot of mixed emotions. They need guidance. They need support. They need help. So my section was Delores Talks Determination.
Okay, and we have about a minute left, Delores, on the subject of determination. You just told me off the air first time. You've come up with, again, in your spare time, another project you just finished. And what was that project?
That project was actually, this project was completed before the book. This was my digital download. Someone said to me, if you can write a book, you can do a digital download. It's a lot shorter.
Sure.
It doesn't take as much time. And so then I said, well, you know what? Why don't I try it? So what I did was I thought about what was interesting to me. And again, how I can make a difference in other people's lives. Everybody's dealing with the virus and different things. And one of the things that kept me going was my running. I was not really overly anxious because of the virus, because I was
Dolores, sorry to cut in here. Just if people want to find out more information about this latest project or get in touch with you, best bet is what?
They can go to delosflow.net. It's DELORES, another S, FLOW.net.
Okay. I'd like to thank you, Dolores, for being my guest this second half hour of the Blaine's World Show. Also to George Awad and Elizabeth McCorvey, my guest the first half hour. Also to my producer, Amy Prisnosh. And we'll see you next week, Wednesday at 9 a.m. here on new WPVM 103.7 in Asheville, North Carolina. As I sign off, Dolores, can you just stay on board and I'll just wrap up with you. So thanks for being my guest.